Welcome everybody. I see lots of students joining us. We are 20 students, 21, 22, that number's going up. Global Gophers, if you can chat right below where you are joining from, I would love to see what countries you are participating in. Most of us here, we're joining from Minnesota. We have someone joining us from Cambodia. I see someone from Taiwan. Welcome. Nigeria, Manila, Georgia. Welcome. Someone is joining us from Malawi, Ghana. Luisa joining from the Gambia, Azerbaijan, Baku. Oh, I have a friend that's from Azerbaijan. Iran, coming from Italy. I see someone from India, Iran, Nigeria, Russia. Exciting. Well, keep on adding where you're joining us from. I am super excited to have you all here. If you don't know this already, my name is Marina Uehara, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am the program director for student engagement. While we wait for some of your peers to join us, I'm gonna ask V to play a quick video for all of you. Thank you, V. I'll be inviting Soliana, ISSS Senior Global Gopher Leader, to introduce the upcoming Global Gopher Experience sessions.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session. My name is Soliana Shukur. I'm an international student here studying computer science, and I'm also a Senior Global Gopher Leader. Global Gopher Experiences is here to welcome you to the U, answer any of your questions, and provide you with the latest information. And we have a bunch of events coming up for the summer, mostly webinar/meeting formats until August. So we invite you to join us for our upcoming events. And I'll pass it back to Marina.
Thank you, Soliana. And again, welcome My name is Marina Uehara. I'm the Director for Student Engagement in International Student Scholar Services, or ISSS. In the next slide, I am excited for each of you to begin your academic journey here at the University of Minnesota. We call you all Global Gophers, Goldie Gopher being our mascot at the University of Minnesota. And I'm hoping that you are all excited about your journey coming here. Today's session is a great mix of hearing from a lot of our campus partners. So thank you to our campus partners today from Off-Campus Living. For our Off-Campus Living workshop, we have Katie Williams for Housing and Residential Life, Kendra Turoni from Off-Campus Living, Adam Ealing from Student Legal Services, and Paida Chikate from University of Minnesota Police Department, or UMPD. It is a wonderful opportunity to also hear from our current student leaders on their advice on how to navigate off-campus living. On our next slide, I do want to acknowledge that we are still going through some post-COVID difficulties. I am aware that many of you are still trying to secure visas, and it's impacting your travel plans right now. Should that still be an issue, please email us at issssnew@umn.edu. If you have joined our webinars in the past, you know that we try to give you timely updates on any changes that are happening here at the University of Minnesota. A few days ago, the university sent out a notification that the COVID-19 vaccination requirement is no longer required here at the University of Minnesota. Prior to that, we had heard that the COVID vaccine was no longer required for your travels coming here, as well as no longer required for a negative test for some students from specific countries. We will be covering more questions around immunizations. Those are still required by the U, and you'll be hearing more from our experts at our health and wellness webinar on July 12th. So make sure you join that, because you will be able to ask questions to our campus partners. Again, if you're interested in COVID-19 vaccinations, Boynton does strongly encourage folks to get those as soon as you're able to, and that they will continue to offer them throughout drop-ins from Mondays to Wednesdays. I'm going to go to our next slide, and I'm going to pass it on over to V, one of our other ISSS Senior Global Gopher leaders.
Hi, everyone. It's amazing to see so many of you reach out and attend this webinar today. My name is Viswesh Seshan. I use he, him pronouns, but you can call me V. So just to introduce today's session, most of you know why you're here, but it's to answer any questions that you might have about your off-campus living and any housing and all of that stuff. And all of our amazing campus partners today are gonna answer any questions you might have about that. So down below, you guys can see the Q&A function as well. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, one of our Global Gopher leaders will be able to assist you with any information you need. Most of the questions are going to be covered in the presentation today, but we hope you have a great time listening to us. And any more questions, you can always send that to us at issssnew at .umn.edu. I'm going to pass it over to Katie now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Katie Olson-Williams. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an assistant director here on campus in our Housing and Residential Life department. I oversee our conference and events team as well as marketing communications. So today I'm actually filling in for our coordinator of housing properties who manages the off-campus listing service. This service is the bridge between area apartments that are for rent and our students at the university. Property owners and managers pay on to list actually on our site, which provides some degree of security knowing that a listing on the site is from an actual rental business or company. Companies that are not in compliance with the university's off-campus housing program policy are removed from the site. The site can be reached anytime by going to housing.umn.edu/off-campus or listings.umn.edu. Next slide. So the biggest question and concern we get from students living in the off-campus market is what to expect to pay. So we work with vendors to track market rates, and reflected on this slide are the expected costs for a unit in the university area for this past year. The market rate for an apartment is the rate to expect when you are renting an entire apartment. The market rate per bed is what you should expect to pay if you are just renting a bed space or a bedroom space within an apartment. So when looking at apartments, both rates will be used. So you really need to understand exactly what is being sold. Is it the apartment or is it a bed space? Next slide, please. So how do you search for housing is largely based on the preference of you. So you need to understand yourself, your living habits and your expectations out of a rental. The lower the price often means the lower the expectations for services should be. The higher prices often mean that you are looking at a multi-story large apartment building. These types of facilities normally have locked entrances, desk staff, amenities, covered parking, and other features that come with a higher price point. So can you get units in our market cheaper? Yes, and you need to understand the reduction in expectations that come with that. You should ask or look for what is included in the price point. Are there furnishings in the unit? What utilities are included? Is there internet? And is there security? So those are just a few of the things to really consider when looking at off-campus rentals. So some other items of note to help you in your search for housing. So as you're looking, emailing is often the best method for contacting properties. It is not uncommon to sign a lease for a space that you have not seen. And what that means is essentially the space you're going to be leasing is likely currently occupied. So the property manager will show spaces that they can't actually have constant entry into a space that is being currently occupied. And so you will likely see something that is similar or gives you a sense of what the apartment may have, but would not be the exact unit. Leases are most often 11.5 months to 12 months in length. Make sure you understand and know the dates on the lease. Plan for any gaps in housing that you might have. Plan to use hotels or other temporary housing services. Subleases are very abundant during the summer and are at a discounted rate. However, do not plan to offset 100% of your cost by subleasing. 9-month leases are offered at some places at a higher price point. Once you have picked an apartment and signed a lease, the university's resources for you are not over. Off-campus living is here to help you and support your navigation through the community that you have now joined. I will now hand it over to Kendra Tironi now to talk about moving in and the resources that are available through off-campus living.
Thanks so much, Katie. Hey, everyone. I'm Kendra Tironi, and I am the Program Director for Off-Campus Living, which is our office on campus that provides all the resources for all the students who rent in the neighborhoods near campus and all the students who commute from home. So if you want to go to the next slide, I wanted to highlight some resources for renters that you can find through our office. Our office operates a tool called the Roommate Finder. Basically, we have a form that undergraduates and graduate and professional students can fill out, share some information about what they're looking for and whatnot, and they submit it to us. We verify that students are actually enrolled or admitted students, and then we give you access to a spreadsheet of other students who are also looking for roommates. It does require you to do the put the effort in and reach out. We don't match anyone. We don't recommend who to live with. You need to kind of sort through the list and filter it to find who meets your needs and reach out and connect with people. But we do have a couple different ways. We have some groups on Facebook that can help you find others that are looking. And so we have a Roommate Finder group on Facebook that is specific to students that have been approved. And again, they have to be an admitted or enrolled student to have access to that group. And we also have a housing group on Facebook. And the housing group, this group is quite a bit bigger. The Roommate Finder group probably has 2,000 students, but some of them haven't pulled themselves off, right? So people keep getting added, but they don't always leave. The housing group is the same way. We probably are around 10,000 plus students in that group, and not all of them are active users. But anyone who's on the group has been verified by us when we add them that they are an admitted or enrolled student. So we try to keep outside individuals out just to help prevent scams from happening. Doesn't mean there might not be one, but theoretically, there should be less likelihood because we know that they're verified students in the group. The housing group is a great place to find sublets as well as roommates. and to get feedback from people on particular apartments that you may be looking at, that you could ask people for their experiences there as well. Next slide. So I think one of the most helpful tools we have to help you with your renting search process is we have a course that we've created on Canvas. And Canvas is the platform that the university uses. The faculty will set up classes on. And so we've created a class that basically takes our renter education workshop that our office normally puts on in conjunction with Student Legal Service. And we've taken all that information and put it in an online format for you that you can go look at your own pace. And so we have 10 modules. You can complete 1, 5, all 10, totally up to you. And you can see what the different topics are. So you can choose and focus on what areas are most helpful for you in doing your housing search. And so this is the best resource right now for you, I think, in getting renter information. Our website is currently under construction. And so not all of the renter education information on our website is up and viewable for you right now. Later through the month of June, it will become more full. So I would encourage you to look at our website more thoroughly, probably in July and after. But this site, with the Canvas site, the Renter Education Campus course, has everything you would need to know. And so it's all there at any point in time you might need. Next slide. So we always like to share a couple tips with roommates. When you use our roommate finder service, we have some great handouts and things that are included in the shared folder there for you. But here are some examples of questions that you can ask roommates. We really encourage you. I know the student leaders will share some more information about this topic as well. I just wanted to highlight for you, if you ever run into problems with your roommate, we always encourage you to reach out to your management of your apartment as a first stop for dealing with roommate issues. But you also have the option, there's an office on campus, which is the Student Conflict Resolution Center, that does do mediation between university students with each other if there's problems. So this would be a great resource for you should you run into roommate problems. Hopefully you won't, right? Next slide. I always like to highlight for you what some of the neighborhoods are, because coming in from other locations, you may not be as familiar with what neighborhoods are near campus. So there's 3 different areas I'm going to highlight: the East Bank, West Bank, and then the St. Paul area. This is the East Bank area, and there are 3 primary neighborhoods in the East Bank neighborhood. These are the 3 neighborhoods that are closest to the East Bank campus, and these are the neighborhoods in particular. Actually, these are the 3 oldest neighborhoods in the whole city of Minneapolis. So I always like to make sure you know that housing in some of these areas can be older buildings. We do also have lots of new construction that's been happening, particularly in the Marcy Homes area and Prospect Park have had a lot of construction of some new apartments where older housing was torn down and newer apartments have been constructed. But you want to pay attention if that's something that's important to you. I highlighted here if they have commercial areas where there's shopping or what the grocery store options are nearby. Because these are older neighborhoods, some of them have commercial districts, not all of them do. Sometimes they have just smaller commercial districts. So I also highlighted which ones have bus lines going through, which basically every neighborhood in Minneapolis has bus lines going through it. So that's always a resource for you. Some do also have access to light rail as well. So I just thought those things would be good to highlight. The next neighborhood, if you want to move to the next slide, that we highlight is the West Bank neighborhood. And we have Cedar Riverside and Seward that are here. Cedar Riverside is the closest to the West Bank campus. It's really, the arts quarter is there, lots of music venues. Seward in particular is just adjacent to Cedar Riverside, and it's going to have more residential. It doesn't have much commercial in it at all. And you're going to have more professionals living in Seward that are like working downtown, as well as some students, but not as many students in that particular neighborhood. And then I wanted to highlight the St. Paul campus, which has 3 neighborhoods by it. And so Falcon Heights, Como Park, and St. Anthony Park. Again, these neighborhoods are probably a little bit more residential with a little bit less commercial options, but they do have some grocery options near them, buses. There's also, light rail goes from Minneapolis through to St. Paul. Buses are in every neighborhood to make it convenient and whatnot. So just to give you a sense of where your majority of your classes are is where you tend to choose to live, is how most students choose a neighborhood and identify that as a resource for them. All right, next slide. I wanted to highlight real quick some other resource options on our campus. We have a program called Pack and Give Back, wherein we work with all the current students, and when they're moving out, we ask them to donate their reusable items that they no longer need instead of throwing them out. And we're trying to reduce the amount of waste and the trash and the waste stream by doing that. And so we do a collection process with current students every May. And during the summer, where students can drop off items at the reuse program. In the residence hall, students in May, we have these large pods, which are these large storage containers outside the building where students can, they'll collect items as well as smaller items within the lobbies. We make these items available to you. So oftentimes this is a great option for you that you don't have to purchase things brand new when you come to campus. You can shop the free store. There'll be a pop-up free store with a lot of clothing during Welcome Week. In the whole music club, which is a space within our Memorial Union on our campus. And that's normally always on the Tuesday of Welcome Week. You also are able to go to the reuse warehouse, which is over in the Southeast Como neighborhood. And you can shop the free store during their business hours. And we've got kind of a link there that you can follow to get more information that'll be updated. It's probably out of date right now, but as summer comes and they'll add more information later in summer, getting closer to August. I also wanted to highlight that at that reuse warehouse, they also offer a really convenient and affordable short-term storage option for students. Now, we do have lots of private companies that offer storage in and around the university area, but they often will require a 12-month lease for storage space. And if you are leaving to go perhaps home for summer and then wanting to come back, and you would have to like find friends to collaborate with to do that storage option. At the reuse program, you can identify and select that you want to do 3 months or 1 month, or even just a couple weeks. And it's just a great option for you, knowing how far you might be traveling to come to campus, to have that in mind. Next slide. So I always like to just real quickly highlight what the public transit options are, so you know how easy it is to get from different area and neighborhood pieces, and even just around our campus. On the left side of the slide, you'll see the Gopher Trip shuttle with an example map of what they do. And so we have shuttle buses that travel within the East Bank campus, within West Bank, within St. Paul, and we also have the campus connector that goes from one campus to another to help you get from one campus to another for your classes. We all have an app that students will use to help plan and see when those campus connector buses or the campus circulator buses are coming. We also have Metro Transit, which operates bus and light rail systems, and has bikeways that they try to promote as well. And so we really, this is a very heavily biked community. So if you're someone who's comfortable with biking, there are bike paths on each of the roadways and things designated there. Lots of our students utilize the bus lines and the light rail. We're very fortunate that students have access to a universal transit pass automatically if they are registered for classes and paying for the student service fees that are attached to the tuition. So if you're paying the student service fees, one of those fees is a transportation and safety fee. And it's about $45 of that fee goes toward this universal transit pass. And basically it takes your U card and turns it into a bus pass and a light rail pass. So all you have to do is activate it by scanning your U card when you get it, which is your university identification card that you'll get when you come to campus. And you just activate that by tapping it on the check-in locations at the bus or the light rail. Sometimes it takes a day for it to be active, but when you go on, like if it does give you an error signal at first, they'll still let you on that first time. It's just that's the way you have to activate it, is by tapping it when you enter the bus or enter the light rail. And then it should work from then on out. It's good. So when you are enrolled in fall, it's good for fall semester. When you're enrolled for spring, your Universal Transit Pass is actually good for spring and summer semesters if you're enrolled for spring. So it's just a great option to make use of. And we do have Metro Transit itself has a website, which has a great trip planner to help you figure out what buses or light rail you should take, depending on what destination you want to go to. So it gives you great instructions on which routes to take and where to find those stops. Thanks. Next slide. All right, so a couple of safety resources that I just want to highlight for you. Safety is important. We are an urban campus. And so safety is going to be a concern no matter where you are, right? And I'm sure even where you're coming from, safety is a concern. We want to highlight these resources in particular for you. We have a program where our University of Minnesota Police Department has trained security staff that will walk with you from campus to an off-campus location up to a mile, or from an off-campus location back to campus. So you call that phone number, 612-624-WALK, and you can request it. They also, you can go online and request it with an online form as well. It is a great resource. You do need to plan ahead, probably 15 to 20 minutes and ahead of when you will need someone to walk with you, so they can have time to get to you in case others are also utilizing this service. We also have a program called Gopher Chauffeur that's operated out of our Boyne Health Service, where we have students. It's a student-run service where students are driving vehicles and will pick up people and drive them and drop them off at different locations around or near campus. You can see the hours there. And so that is a great option. It's intended to be kind of a late night option to assist students. So it was originally intended to help prevent students who were trying to prevent drinking and driving, but it really has expanded from students that were drinking. Now it's just any student can use it, no matter what need they might have. But it is a student focused only, and so it's not, no outsiders would be on those Gopher Chauffeur rides at all. We also have blue light kiosks. You can see example on the right hand of the screen there. There are poles that have a phone embedded in it, and most often also have a video equipment. And these are emergency phones that, should you need help and not have your own phone with you, or you just want to get a hold of 911 and you're by one, that you can hit it. And it's a direct connection to the dispatch for the university police department. And they'll be able to talk with you and find out what your needs are or concerns, and be able to dispatch police to your location, and police arrive very quickly through that service. We also have some of these kiosks adjacent right off campus in the near campus area, on the edges of campus, and a little bit on some private property, just to try and help us, one, have better access in case you need it, but also because of the video piece that it gives us. Our campus police, our public safety department monitors through thousands of cameras across campus to keep a track of what's going on. And it's just a security foundation for our campus, which we really are proud of. We also have an app that our public safety department launched a couple of years ago called the Rave Guardian Campus Safety app. It's an app that basically has a location tracker and a timer, where you would, if you're choosing to use it, enter the destination of where you're going and start it, and you would identify contacts, emergency contacts that you would list in the app. And if you don't check in and turn it off when you arrive at your location, it's gonna basically trigger an alarm that goes to the people with the contacts you've put in. You can choose to have the public safety department as one of your contact people if you want. And then that way, if you don't check in, they would try to reach out to you by phone to make sure you're okay, and come out in person to find you if you're not responding. And so it's just a great safety resource in that way. Next slide. I always like to encourage our students to sign up for our newsletters from our office. Off-Campus Living does newsletters for both renters and students commuting from further away. So these are options you could scan here. You could also go to our website and scroll to the bottom. There's also the sign up form links there as well. And then next slide, we'll be highlighting just a couple of we're on social media, and we want to connect with you. So this is a great way to find information about resources we're offering, programs that are happening. We also try to highlight things happening in the city or the county, events, things that are fun and engaging. We also highlight and promote things that other student organizations or other departments are doing on campus. So we're trying to amplify and make sure you have a positive experience living off campus. So thanks so much. At this point in time, I believe I am passing it over to, we have Paida, who is the University of Minnesota Police Department and International Outreach Intern. Thanks so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paida Chikate, and I'm an intern with the UMPD. It's a collaboration between ISSS and UMPD in an effort to help connect international students with our police department and talk more about safety. And so I wanted to start mainly with some tips that I have for you from a student perspective who lives on campus about the safety when you're around our campus. So one thing that I want to start with is, when you're going out early in the morning or late at night, to be very aware of your surroundings. There are a lot of trails where you can go and exercise or running. Please be aware of the people who are around you. Also, if you wear earbuds like myself, please try to have one earbud instead of both of them, so you know if cars are coming, if bikes are coming, or if other runners or exercisers are coming around you. And then secondly, If you have a vehicle on campus, one thing that the UMPD does provide is a lock, so a wheel lock that you can put on your vehicle wheel. And those are free to students. So if you go to the UMPD station, they'll be able to give you one. And that's located on the East Bank. It's right across from the East Bank light rail station. Thirdly, talking about passports, because we're international students, if you lose your passport or your ID is stolen, please contact UMPD. They'll be able to open a case for you and investigate and hopefully find your passport. And as always, please contact ISSS if your passport is stolen, because I'm sure that's where your visa may be as well. So be sure to inform them. UMPD is a resource for you all, so please do not hesitate to contact us at any time. We host several coffee and donut dates with students. So we'll usually be at the East Bank or West Bank stations. And we have lots of coffee and donuts. So we'd love to see you around and talk more about your safety concerns. And make sure that we get to know you as well. If you ever have an emergency, please dial 911 first. Do not try to contact the police department. If you dial 911, we'll be able to get to you much faster than trying to contact UMPD directly. And then just a few other things. We have a UMPD safety newsletter that goes out to a lot of people every month. And you can sign up for that newsletter. I'll be sure to get a link to that for everyone so that you know what the safety concerns are on campus. There's a lot of interesting news in there from the chief, Chief Clark, and just to make sure that you're aware of what's happening around the places that you live. And then lastly, in September during Welcome Week, we'll be having Discover Dinkytown event, and you can connect with UMPD there. We'd love to get to know you. We'll be there with resources for you all. So please stop by and say hi. I'll be passing it on to Adam from University Student Legal Services.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. So my name is Adam Elling. I'm a lawyer with Student Legal Service. Student Legal Service is a full service law office right on campus. We're actually located on the West Bank, so just over the river from the East Bank. Our office has 7 lawyers. We have 2 paralegals. We have support staff, a law clerk. We are able to help with various legal issues. The main reason why I'm here today is to talk about landlord-tenant law, but we do immigration law, we do criminal defense, we do consumer law, all sorts of things. So as long as you're paying the student service fee, you are eligible for our services. Let's go to the next slide. So the main reason I'm here is to talk about leases and signing leases and kind of what all of that entails. The first thing that I'm going to recommend today, and you're going to hear me repeat this multiple times, is before you sign a lease, have it bring it over to Student Legal Service and let us review it for you. We will go through the lease with you. We're not going to go through line by line. Some of these leases are 30 pages long, and a lot of them are written for companies that have campus partners and properties all across the country, and they write their leases broad enough that all of the laws across the country will fall in and be in compliance with those leases. So some of the things won't be relevant, but we will point out the important things for you to understand. We'll give you a bunch of renting tips as well. And we're able to just share a lot of insight about the properties, the neighborhoods, things like that. So before you sign anything, bring your lease over to us and let us review it. And remember that a lease is a legally binding contract. So as soon as you sign that lease, you are bound to that lease. It doesn't matter if you haven't moved in yet. It doesn't matter if you decide to not come to the University of Minnesota. If you have signed that lease, you are going to be bound to it. And I can promise you that the landlord is going to hold you to that contract, and they will try to collect on it or put you into a position where you need to try to find somebody to replace you. So be very conscientious before you sign a lease, that you know that that's the place where you want to live, and that you've done your homework on the landlord. You've Googled them, you've looked at Yelp reviews, you've potentially talked to friends or other classmates who maybe have lived in that property. And then, of course, you have come to us for a lease review. Another thing that I want to mention that's not on this slide is don't ever sign two leases. Like I said, these are legally binding contracts. So if you sign a lease at one place, let's say you sign at Grand Mark and you think this is going to be a great place, I've got some friends over there. And then you decide, oh, I've got even more friends and it's even a better location to go sign at 412 Lofts. Now you are legally bound to two leases. You have double rent obligation, and it's going to be very difficult to get you out of that situation without basically finding somebody to replace you. So the two biggest takeaways for today I want to be: get your lease reviewed by Student Legal Service and don't sign two leases. Let's go to the next slide. One of the elements of signing a lease is providing a security deposit. More and more landlords are doing away with the security deposit, and a security deposit is money that is paid at the time you sign a lease, and it's your money that the landlord holds on to. And it's held in the event that there is damage beyond ordinary wear and tear to the property. Then the landlord will just take that money and use it to repair whatever needs to be repaired. Usually it's equal to 1 month of rent. However, some of the bigger complexes that we're seeing, those nationwide players, those nationwide landlords that I mentioned there earlier, they are doing away with the security deposit, because a security deposit, like I said, is your money. So the landlord has to follow very specific laws in how they handle that money. And it's easier for them to not collect a security deposit. And then if there's damage beyond ordinary wear and tear, they bill you, and the ball is kind of in their court. They have more control. The power shifts back to them because they're not dealing with your money anymore. There aren't specific statutes that they have to follow. They can basically do whatever they want. So it's kind of an imbalance of power. So to protect yourself in both situations, whether you have a security deposit or you don't have a security deposit, before you move in anything, walk through the property. They should give you a move-in checklist, the landlord, and you can note the condition on that checklist. Note the condition of every single thing in that property, but also take pictures of everything: the floor, the ceiling, the walls, the fixtures, the appliances, anything you can take a picture of, take a picture of it on the day you move in. Then you have a good record of what the condition of the property was on the day that you moved in. In the event when you go to move out, they say that something is damaged or something is dirty or whatever, you can say, hey, that was a pre-existing condition. Or when you're ready to move out, you clean everything, you clean the place like crazy, and then you go through and you take that same set of pictures you took on move-in day, take it again on move-out day. Then you have the perfect record of exactly what it looked like on the day you moved in and on the day you moved out, and you can dispute any sort of charges that might not be valid by the landlord. So you want to build this proof. I know it seems probably like a hassle and really cumbersome. It's not going to take you more than 5 or 10 minutes to walk through and take pictures of everything. But it probably will take you more than 5 or 10 minutes to clean everything. And trust me when I say clean everything. Pull out the refrigerator, pull out the stove, clean behind everything. You might be cleaning up other people's dirt. You might be cleaning up other people's grease. I don't care. Clean it, because the landlord has the right to charge you if that is there after you move out. All right, let's go to the next slide. Every lease must identify the following. You have to know who the parties are to the lease. So they have to give you who the landlord is and how to contact the landlord. And then obviously your name has to be on the lease as well. They have to provide you with the rent amount, and they have to provide you when the start and end date are of the lease. So that's what's known as the lease term. And very importantly, they have to identify the unit number on the lease. So these are all things that you need to look for before you sign a lease. But of course, before you sign that lease, bring it over to Student Legal Service and we will review it for you to make sure that all of the important identifiers and these material terms are highlighted and clear for you before you sign that lease. Let's go to the next slide. This is my last slide, and I want to talk about avoiding scams. And scams can go beyond just landlords. There are lots of scams that happen for students, international students, just residents of Minnesota. I mean, there are scammers everywhere. So be very conscientious of this and be leery. We talked about it earlier, but use listings.umn.edu to find your landlords. Try to avoid places like Craigslist or other non-university affiliated websites. It's going to be, I think it was Kendra who said, they can't guarantee it. We can't guarantee that there won't be a scam, but it's going to be, the people have been vetted a little bit if they're using the listing service from the University of Minnesota. One thing that we see a lot with international students, though, is they will sign a lease while they are at home, and then they will come to Minnesota and they will find that the property that they signed for doesn't exist, or somebody else occupies it, and the person that made it as if it were available just doesn't exist, used a burner phone or something like that. And generally a good telltale sign in a situation like that is the supposed landlord will ask for payment in gift cards. If you are ever asked to make a payment in gift cards, a gift card of any kind, if it's just a Visa gift card or if it's an Amazon gift card, anytime anyone who says they're a landlord or they say that they're anybody else and they're asking for you to pay them with a gift card, it's more likely going to be a scam, because that gift card can't be traced if you send that to them. If you send a money order, or if you send something that's by certified check, all of that stuff can be traced, but a gift card can't be traced. So that is a telltale sign that you are dealing with a scam. So be very, very careful with that. Also, if you are going to sign a lease before you get to Minnesota, once again, try to have that lease reviewed by us. But also, if you know anybody that's here locally, or if there's anybody that you can reach out to that could maybe go to the property to ensure that that property actually exists, that is something that can be extremely beneficial before you sign that lease. And last but not least, I'm going to say it again, but have your lease reviewed by Student Legal Service before you sign it. We're here for you. We are your lawyers, and we want to be able to help you. We want to make sure that you're successful when you come to the University of Minnesota. Okay, I'm going to pass it off to some current international students who will discuss from a real life perspective here.
Juliana, I'll invite you to start.
Okay, thank you, Marina. Thank you, Adam. Unlike many of my friends, I went straight to off-campus housing, and the most important thing I learned is to read the lease contract very carefully, or at least take it to SLS, the Student Legal Services. The lease is the most important document when it comes to renting, and it has everything that is about the property. So you must identify if the housing is furnished or not. And some housings come with all the necessary furniture, while others have essentials like only kitchen and bathroom furniture. And also the price depends on the furniture that exists in the house. Also, some apartments allow pets, some do not allow, or some allow only cats. And the price also varies if you have a pet or not. And you also need to know the policy of repairing and maintenance. Each apartment has also different rules for people staying overnight if you want to have a party. And also the most important thing would be the deposits and fees. And you would need to check it carefully, since some of the fees might not be non-returnable, and sometimes it's very confusing. Read the whole lease contract very carefully, and since it contains all the information you need, make sure the lease contract is to your liking. And if you need help reviewing leases, you can always contact Student Legal Services. I'll pass it off to Shiman.
Hi everyone, my name is Shiman Li, a PhD student from College of Design. I am also an international student. As a past resident advisor, I would like to provide one piece of advice around roommates. It is important early on to set boundaries with your roommates for those of you who will be living with roommates. These boundaries will help those you are living with to know what kind of behaviors are acceptable to you and are not. It helps prevent conflict. Secondly, some of the apartments do not come with furniture, and none of them come with kitchen utensils and you might need to buy some. You do not need to buy new ones if you are trying to save money. There are a lot of people selling used furniture on Facebook Marketplace. I suggest also before checking those places, you check the university's reuse center. They usually have nice items for more affordable prices. And then I will pass on to Yueting.
Thank you, Shima. Hello, everyone. My name is Yuting Zhao, upcoming senior studying genetics at the College of Biological Sciences. I'm also a senior supervising GG leader. My piece of advice will be related to parking and transportation options. If you have a vehicle like a car, don't forget to check the parking option for your housing and know the campus parking policies via the campus parking and transportation surveys. I will send a link to the chat later on. If you don't have a vehicle, check the available public transportation options nearby your housing by using the Google Map to check your class's location and plan your transportation time accordingly, or using the Gopher trip to check the schedule for school buses, such as the Campus Connector 121, and using the Metro Transit app to check the schedule for Metro Transit light rail and buses. It is never wrong to be familiar with your public transportation option and have planned for your travel. Then I will pass it to you, one of our great assistant graduate consultant.
Thank you, Yuting. So I believe, hello everyone, my name is Ongro Tayut. I'm a graduate consultant and also a first year PhD student. Well, as a graduate student, I believe there might be a slight difference in terms of your preferred living environments and perhaps better related to housing in general. Even so, it's still very important as well. So I want to emphasize once again, don't forget to utilize the university services and trustworthy listing websites that include the UMN listing, and those, feel free to select those with higher rating. Second, there's also a new option where you can actually do a scheduled virtual tour or a call before signing the lease, because I think that actually very helpful. Even though the time difference, I think they are very accommodating towards where and when you can actually do those virtual tours as well. And I think one other important thing is that if you arrive with partner or family members, I think it's also important to double check whether or not there is an additional room or boarding or requirement for having housing as well. And we would also, as me and Shiman are both residents at the student housing called CTC, Housing of UNN, and CSCC, Como Student Community Cooperative. It will be a good option for those who are interested in living with family members, and those two options are actually prioritize graduate students. So if you're coming with a dependent, it's very important for you to check them out, because I think they're giving a lot of good options of housing type. I'm currently living in a two-bedroom housing townhouse, which is very amazing, and I think Shiman is as well. And it's a community living, so you actually having a lot of space for you to engage, building community, as well as your children and your dependent have the opportunity to engage with other international students as well as other students on campus as well. So I think I'm gonna actually would like to more emphasize on graduate housing guidebook, which is available for graduate students to check, because we also have a unique need for that too. So I'm going to pass the floor back to Yuting.
Thank you, Yu. Well, now the new International Student Preparation course for fall 2023 has been published. This course is specifically designed for international students and give you important information about visa regulation, academic culture, what to expect when you arrive, and more. We require that you complete these courses before your scheduled orientation date. Also, check the module 2.11 for more housing information. By the way, next slide, please. By the way, just a friendly reminder, don't forget to update your current housing address within 10 days after your arrival. Next slide, please. Next, after you arrived, how to stay connected with SSS. Actually, there are many ways, including new student website in SSS at www.sss.umn.edu/new and our Global Gopher Experience website. You also can contact us at ssnew@umn.edu via the email, and the SSS staff member will respond to you. Make sure you also follow us our social media channels. Next, I will pass it to Marina, who will introduce the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Yuting, and thank you to all of our campus partners that were here to present resources and information for our new international students. The Q&A portion is V had talked about earlier at the beginning of the session. If you have questions, our students have been answering them. We did look at your pre-registration questions, and we tried to include as much information on our session today, but we also have less than an hour to present all that information. So I'll be asking our campus partners today to be answering some of the questions we just received. I'll go ahead and start with Katie over from Housing and Rest Life to just answer a few key questions around temporary housing. So we had a student that asked about, is there any temporary housing available if their orientation is scheduled for August 10th, but their moving date is August 19th?
Hi, thanks, Marina. Yes, we do have early arrival housing available for all international students. Does not matter if you are living with us in the fall or living off campus. We have housing available beginning July 23rd through August 25th. And so that application is actually set to go live this morning. So we will get our website updated with that live link. And I can certainly add the link in the chat here in a moment as well, but you can certainly make your reservation. When you do that, if your travel plans change, just note that we won't bill you for anything unless you stay. So if your travel plans change and you end up not coming, or your dates change, that is totally okay. You will only be billed on your student account. It's $37 a night for the nights that you actually stay with us. Unfortunately, our housing does not accommodate for families or others, so it is just for enrolled UMN students.
Okay. Katie, you actually answered my follow-up question that a lot of students had, which was the signing or the registration for international early arrival housing. So I'm glad that you shared that it is going live today. So students, for those of you that asked, make sure that you check and you log in with your U of M email. Katie, again, how do I find off-campus housing?
Yeah. So the off-campus listing site that I mentioned earlier in the presentation is definitely the best option for you. I'm also going to add a link here in the chat regarding for graduate students. There is some additional information for graduate students looking for housing and some different guides there. So I added that for you as well if you are a graduate student looking for some housing options.
Okay. Katie, I have two follow-up questions for you. How much lead time do we need to register for early arrival form? Is there a deadline for that?
If you are coming there's not necessarily a deadline. I guess the earlier the better, just so we can make sure that we are prepared for your arrival. But even if you were to show up, we would just have you go online and make the reservation. We do need you to do the reservation online because there are some checks and balances with the application that we need to have so that your information is accurate in our system. But if it's as far in advance, that's great. If it's the day before or day of, that is also okay. If you are coming, however, later in August, we do ask that your reservation is in by August 18th for that last week that we have early arrival available, just because there's a lot of movement as we prepare for our academic year residents moving in and just a lot of transition. So the August 18th for that last week is helpful, but outside of that, there is no deadline except for prior to your arrival.
Okay. And then final question for you, Katie. International early arrival goes on until August 25th, when most leases start on September 1st. Do you have any recommendations for those, that gap of time?
Yeah. So our checkout is that if you are living off campus is that Friday, August 25th at 7 p.m. And unfortunately, we cannot change that due to, again, prepping for the academic year move-in, which is 2 days later. And so we need to make sure the rooms are all ready and cleaned. So if you need kind of that bridge housing, I would recommend looking at any of the local hotels. Some of them offer a weekly rate versus a daily rate, which might save you a little bit of money. The other option would be if you do connect with folks during your early arrival stay, or know of folks living here, seeing if you can stay with them for a few days. And we will try and have some additional resources at Frontier Hall, which is where early arrival housing will be this year, to help you plan accordingly.
Thank you, Katie, for answering all those questions.
Yeah, can I just add something to that?
Go ahead, Kendra.
If you haven't signed a lease yet and you're looking, there are a lot of apartment complexes that actually have leases that start in that third week of August. A lot of our house rentals will have a September 1 move-in date, but the majority of our apartments off campus, most of them tend to have an August move-in date. So if you haven't signed a lease yet for a property, that's something to look at, knowing that you need housing from August 25th on to identify a location that would have an earlier move-in would be the best route in that way.
Thank you, Kendra. My next questions are for Adam. We have quite a few questions from for University Student Legal Services. The first one is, as incoming new students, some students have already started reaching out to University Student Legal Services, but because they're not students that have paid the fees yet, how would they go around getting their lease reviewed by someone in your team?
Yeah, we have it set up now that if an international student who is going to be paying the student service fee this upcoming fall reaches out by email, usls@umn.edu, then we will do a lease review for those students.
Okay, so they should probably say that they are a new incoming international student and they would like to have their lease reviewed, and that this was shared at the webinar, so that should be okay to go for them.
Yep, exactly.
I know you're also answering a few questions on the chat as well, but we had some questions around if in relation to security deposits, if the damage is done within the shared common spaces, is the cost of that then shared amongst the roommates when they check out?
It is. Yep. So if there's a common space like the living room or the kitchen, any shared space, then any damage to that area is going to be charged equally to the roommates, regardless of who charged it. That's what happens when you're on what's known as a joint and several liability lease. So a lot of these leases will be individual leases that students will sign, where their rent liability is only the student's liability, their bedroom space is only their liability, but then it's joint and several liability in the shared spaces. So they will have to pay their portion regardless of who causes that damage in a common space.
And then finally, I have a question around paying deposits. So a lot of payments for deposits, that's your way of reserving your lease and your apartment location. But a lot of international students don't have bank accounts or US-based credit cards. Is it possible that if they're being told to wait until they have a US bank account, that until they arrive here, that they will still be able to get that lease, or should they be reaching out to you?
What they should do is reach out to the landlord and ask for confirmation in writing that that property that they've signed for will be held for them and reserved for them until they're able to get to the United States and open up a US bank account and provide that deposit money. I think most landlords are going to be open to that and understand that they'll, they've worked with international students before, and this isn't the first time they've been in those situations. So most of them should be able to confirm that, yes, that space will be held until the deposit can be paid.
And then finally, one question around insurance. Are students required to maintain personal liability coverage for their leases by purchasing insurance?
It depends. That's all lease dependent. My recommendation is, at the very least, students pay for renter's insurance, and that's going to cost somewhere between $10 to $12 a month. So it's not super cost prohibitive, and that covers all of your personal belongings should they get damaged or stolen or somehow while you're living in the rental space. But some leases now are also requiring liability insurance up to $100,000 per incident. And that's if, there's an accidental fire that starts in the oven, or something happens that is unexpected, then you would make a claim on your insurance policy, and that way there wouldn't be a subrogation action that takes place if the landlord's insurance company has to pay for the damage, and then they would come after the student to cover those costs that the insurance company paid. That's what subrogation is. I recommend getting insurance, at the very least getting renter's insurance, and then just making sure you check the terms of the lease, or let us check the terms of the lease for you to see what the insurance requirements are.
Thank you, Adam. And the final question is for both you, Adam, and Kendra as well. If I am not satisfied with the lease, what can I do?
Well, I'll go first. That's just one of those situations where it's kind of buyer beware. If you're not satisfied, I'm assuming when you say lease, do you mean just the document itself, or do you mean like the rental space when they show up?
Oof, they did not. This was a pre-submitted question, so
Okay,
I'm going to.
I'll give two answers then. If it's just the lease itself, you don't like the terms of the lease, then walk away and go sign somewhere else. Most of these leases are non-negotiable. They're pretty much boilerplate. They're going to be set. They're set as they are. They're not going to be open for any sort of negotiation. So if there's a term in a lease that you don't like, then just walk away. If this lease, or if they're talking about the leasing experience is something that they don't like, come to our office and we can talk about whether or not there's an actual lease violation going on. We might have to get the city involved for some inspections if there's something related to the property that's not going well. But if it's you just don't like your roommate, or you just don't like the location or something like that, the best you can do to try to get away from that is finding a subtenant, someone to take over your lease for you.
Kendra, I'll pass it on to you.
Sure. Yeah, I think Adam did a great job answering. I was just going to talk about, if you're not happy in the lease situation and you're not able to find a loophole, a way to get out of the lease with student legal service, then that subletting situation would really be your only recourse. Again, I did mention, if it is something related to roommates or whatnot, working with your apartment management to try and work through those issues, as well as obviously talking to your roommates yourself, is the best first step in doing that. But then the Student Conflict Resolution Center is another option. Folks can always reach out to our office and we can try and help coach you and give you advice on how to deal with the situation in the moment. If it is a legal situation, we will always refer you to student legal service in that case. So that's something where it's very dependent on what the actual concern is with the property or the roommates, or it can vary in that way. So I saw a question come up in just the on the side where it says, when going through the checklist on move-in day, do I need the housing manager to be with you through that process? And the answer to that would be no. Normally, if you're going through and doing the condition move-in report, you can fill that out thoroughly yourself. You would want to make sure you keep a copy of it, and you also provide a copy back to the management to document the move-in condition, and that you are making any maintenance requests if there are things that should be fixed that aren't the way they should be when you move in, that you're doing the proper maintenance request process at that time.
I just want to add on to that.
Yeah.
A new law is going to come into effect. It won't come into effect until January 1st, 2024. But when you go to move in, you can request the manager to be there for that inspection. That's a new law, a new protection that renters now have in Minnesota. That actually was helped pass by student government here at the U. So that is something that somebody could request, to have the manager there, so they're also a witness to what the condition is of the property, but they don't have to be there.
Thank you, Adam. And Kendra, I have one final question that students have submitted in the Q&A. It's around safety around the neighborhoods. Anything that you could share around that? And then I know we're a little bit over time. So again, thank you, Katie and Adam. If you all need to leave, that's perfectly fine. We'll be wrapping up pretty shortly after this last question.
Sure. So as I mentioned, there are safety concerns no matter where you live. And obviously Minneapolis and St. Paul are large cities, urban areas, lots going on. We have the last couple of years, as I'm sure you've heard it throughout the US, there's been short staffing of our police departments across the country, right? And so that is also happening here in Minneapolis and St. Paul as well. And so that means that sometimes the response time of the police when there are complaints made is a little longer than one might like it to be. I will share, one, you have the ability to look at the crime dashboard that the city of Minneapolis has, and St. Paul has something similar as well, where you can look at the crime data to see what has been happening recently in the areas where you are. The university does have a nice notification system in place to let you know about crime happening on campus when there are patterns or things to be aware of. They also have a partnership with the Minneapolis Police Department, so that if there are crimes that are of a serious nature or that students need to be aware of in the moment, that they will do alerts to let students know about that. We also, if you want to sign up specifically for Dickeytown crime alerts, there's also specific instructions for that that you can find on the public, the safety websites for the public safety department. And we normally have that on my website too, but again, we're under construction, and so that information will be on our website eventually, but we had to move to a new server very quickly a week or two ago. So we're having to recreate the site in a new format with it. New software. So hopefully that will all be there, but you can, if you go to the public safety website, find that information as well. I will just mention, there's within Minneapolis, there are different precincts for the police departments, and the East Bank campus is within second precinct. The West Bank campus is within the first precinct. Majority of our undergraduates rent in the East Bank campus neighborhoods, and that particular precinct is consistently amongst the lowest in terms of crime when you look at all of Minneapolis, right? So have we had some rising crime levels on the last year or two? Yes, but the crime has been rising in other locations in Minneapolis as well. So I think it's just really important for students to recognize that you need to be your own best advocate and looking out for yourself. I think Paida had some great advice about when you're walking on campus, don't have your earbuds in, be aware of your surroundings. Don't be on your phone, talking to folks. Like, don't be distracted when you're out and about, paying attention. We always encourage students to walk with others, to be in groups, and avoid being alone later at night, especially. But that's why we do have that 624 walk program, Gopher Chauffeur, that can help with that in particular. Planning ahead of where you're going to be, plan your routes, look at what the lighting is, choose well-lit routes when you're going from campus to where you're renting, to, just like be paying attention to your environment. And you can normally, like, if your gut tells you something doesn't feel right, like, pay attention to that. So we have had some examples, people that'll end up chatting with strangers, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if a stranger asks for your phone to input like their Snapchat to add you, odds are either one, they might be stealing your phone, or two, they're going to, instead of going to Snapchat and adding a contact file to your phone, they might be going to your Venmo and draining that account. Don't hand your phone over to anybody. That's like an example of something, of like a common crime that happens near campus. Like, always, just be aware and making good choices when you're talking with folks. And if you're, if your gut instinct says you're not comfortable in a situation, remove yourself from it. And, but staying within groups helps too. I just, having a bike, the most common theft near campus is bike theft. So having a good lock, a U-lock and a cable lock, those are all good pieces of advice. There's lots of examples of that, of safety advice that, and I think Paida might be a great resource to help you walk through some of those situations as well. So I would encourage you to reach out to her and talk through any concerns you might have. But, you just have to pay attention, and if something should happen, our University Police Department is available, as well as Minneapolis Police, for you to file reports and whatnot.
Thank you, Kendra, for that. And we just had to see Katie leave for our next meeting, as we are a little bit over time. So thank you, Adam and Kendra, for being here. I'm going to pass it on over to V to do our final closing. If you still have any questions that we were unable to answer today, please email us at issnew@umn.edu. V?
Thank you everyone again for attending this event. I'll keep this very short. We have another event coming up on June 28th, which is the Q&A Get to Know Your Leaders session. That's going to be a much more informal, like, Zoom breakout room session where we talk to you about any questions you might have, about anything that we can help you with, our experience, give you our experience on those accounts. The Zoom link will be shared in chat pretty soon, and it uses the same registration link that you use to find this event. and we hope to see all of you there. In the meantime, thank you for joining us, and make sure to look at all the recordings for these sessions on the ISSS website.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you at the next one. Goodbye.